some point here at PWX, you took over the book. What year was that?
Oh, good Lord. That had to have been right around 2000 somewhere.
Okay,
around.
so it's a long time. 18 years, 17 years.
It's a long
What were some of the early obstacles you faced as the booker?
I do remember when I was given the book for the trainees, basically. There was PWX, and then there was a thing called PWL. And I remember going to Jim Miller's house and him saying, okay, well, here's our breakdown. And every single good wrestler, basically, that, that had the crowd reaction or had the experience and stuff like that, was on the PWX side. And then the PWL side, you had all the rookies, and he had like mascot number 1, mascot number 2, mascot number 3, mascot number 4. I was like, what the hell am I going to do with mask guys? So that obviously was an obstacle to overcome. The thing is it actually drove me. It drove the guys, and what happened eventually was a lot of the PWX guys were like, okay, well, the guy over here booking isn't doing shit. PWX numbers keep going down, our numbers keep going up. So I had a bunch of guys saying, okay, I want to start, do some stuff over there. Well, of course, the hammer come down real quick. No, you can't do that unless you make a trade. Well, anybody knows me knows that I'm a big, fantasy football kind of guy or whatever. So, and the booker was Bubba on the other side. I'll tell you right now, I raked him over the coals as far as trades. So, I literally took the PWX heavyweight champion off of him and had him come out and say, I don't need this fucking title anymore. One of the biggest obstacles when we actually got rolling, though, was, and I found out real quick, had all these angles for all these guys, and then like an idiot, I ended them all at the same time. So then now it's like, oh shit, what am I going to do? Now I'm hitting angles, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that was a quick learning experience as far as booking. I did learn a lot, bits and pieces, as far as the psychology and how to put stuff together from Paul and Brian. I learned a lot from Samu as well. It was a situation where Samu would sit down in the ring with me and be like, okay, he was actually the booker at one point, and he's like, okay, I have this, why do I have this here? And I would actually answer, and that helped a lot too, as far as where to put matches. And honestly, putting together a card, in my opinion, is just like a wrestling match. You got to have your highs and lows, your peaks and valleys, your roller coaster. You booked, am I right?
Oh, absolutely, yep. So we all have critics. We all have people that dislike us, will say things about us, maybe to their buddies or anonymously. A lot of times, a guy like you, they won't say it to your face, but we all have critics. It's, as I always do with everybody that I interview, I like to do a little bit of research. I went to cagematch.com, and something stood out on me, and I'm going to read it for you so that I'm not mixing it up. It says, Quinn Magnum is the most accomplished performer in the history of PWX, but there's a reason the success never followed him beyond the small Pittsburgh-based promotion. Quinn is large and awkward, lacking in muscle, execution, and knowledge of wrestling psychology. It is widely accepted that Quinn has hindered the potential of PWX and most of its performers over the last decade. If that person who was sitting in this room right now was here, what would you say to him?
I'd say he's right about something.
What would you say he's right about?
Lanky, lacking definition. Holding back guys, I think I disagree with that. As far as a booker goes, I've never put myself over for a title. Not one time. In fact, and I'm sure you can attest to this, I don't even like going out and doing stuff. How many other bookers or promoters you see to go out there and throw themselves on the show 2, 3, 27 times?
And make himself the champ.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was the thing. My thing was, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let the other guys shine. And long time ago, I think that I did a very good job of developing younger guys. Your Dark Siglers and the early goings of Stone James Keenan, who's Corey Graves now. Stuff like that. Chris Taylor's. Devin Devine, guys like that. And I have a specific way that I like to do it, you know, and sometimes it might piss people off. But at the same time, I feel like that the track record kind of speaks for itself. I mean, there's, you know, a decent amount of young guys that have come through and succeeded in, you know, the process that I put them through. I can see, you know, you're never going to make everybody happy, you know. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if that person's able to get inside my head and know what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, then more power to them. Otherwise, it's just words on the paper. I don't fucking care.
How about this? I know there's have to be other things that you've heard and read about yourself that maybe you don't think is fair as well. What are some of the other things that you've heard that, you know, over the years have really sort of pissed you off and wound you up about? I mean, that's they said this, and that couldn't be farther from the truth.
The biggest thing I think that irritates me is whenever I get blamed for something that I did not do, if that makes sense. And I mean,
that makes sense.
And I'm sure that's kind of to a point for everybody. But I mean, when somebody comes at me or is really, really, you know, pissed off basically, and it's something I didn't do, and I'm like, I did not do that, or this is not how it was supposed to be done, or, you know, whatever. And I try to explain it, and they're still throwing crap or whatever, or, you know, if they go off and say, okay, everything's okay, and then they go off and then behind my back, you know, say stuff like that. That I can, at that point, it makes me mad, and I think that something that I think is a fault of mine is I don't forget anything. I have no short-term memory whatsoever, from shots to the head or whatever you want to call it. What I do have is a memory of an elephant. I'll remember something from 20 years ago. And can I hold a grudge? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, you know, and that stuff that if somebody said, hey, he's stubborn and he's bullheaded and, you know, set in his ways, they're absolutely right. That is something that is, you know, good criticism of me. But at the same time, what I do respect is someone that says something to my face, somebody that comes to me face to face and talks, you know, and at that point, I respect that. I may not like it, I may not like what I'm hearing, but I'm going to respect that. Don't go behind my back, act like a pussy.
One thing, whenever I said that I was going to do this, I had sent you a message, and you were one of the few guys that I've got that said, ask me anything. So we're going to put that to the test a little bit here.
Okay.
Over the past 4 years or so since I've been here, and I guess from what I've been told even prior to that, there's been sort of a cycle of guys starting here and leaving here. Like guys that even train here, guys and girls that train here, and then they want to leave. Why do you think that is? Why does that happen so frequently?
I think there's a lot of different answers to that question. I'll give you all if you got time.
I got all the time. You got a show to start. I don't. So.
I think it's just as much my fault and our fault as it is perhaps their fault. You know, what you don't have a lot of nowadays is loyalty. Like, you know, I don't want to say blind loyalty to a point, but, you know, my thing was when I started, okay, PWX was the thing. That's where I chose to be. I was going to make it 110%. Did I have bitches and stuff? Sure. You know, but at the same time, my thing was I'm going to give it 110%, try to make this as good as possible. It's a different generation. We're both in our mid-40s at this point. You might not be quite mid-40s.
Damn close.
Okay, I am in my mid-40s at this point. It's a different generation. You know, and what drove me back in the day isn't the same kind of drive I don't think that some of the people have today. Just like what drove people before, the generation before me, are probably saying the same thing. Be like, these guys don't know what the hell they're doing. You know, they don't have any loyalty, you know, stuff like that. I think that you got a lot of choices in the area now. You know, a long time ago, you had two choices. You either did PWX or you did Steel City Wrestling. That was it. You know, and both were quality organizations. Now you've got your IWCs, your RWAs, your Rises, your Fight Societies, your bumfuck this or kiss ass that or whatever the hell letters you want to throw out there. I mean, what is there, 13 of them within a 40-mile radius of each other?
Is that right? 13?
It's damn close if it's not.
Okay.
You know,
I know there's a lot. I mean, yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. So what you get is a watered down effect, but what also you get is, okay, don't make me mad or I'm going to go here. And I think you get a lot of that. You know,
I think that's a wrestling thing, or you think it's a generational thing? Because for me, I feel like it's a little bit of a generational thing.
I think it is. I think it's always been there as far as a wrestling thing, but I think it's more widespread as far as a generational thing now. I mean, you might have had maybe 4 or 5 guys that would do that back in our day.
Right.
Whereas now you might have 100 to do it. You know what I mean?
I mean, by me saying that, I'm also shaking my cane, telling kids to get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
hear
it
you.
certainly feels like a generational thing.
Yeah. And I mean, and the thing is, on the flip side, for our thing, I mean, we weren't drawn well. Who the hell wants to wrestle in front of a crowd, a smaller size crowd, when you can go and wrestle in front of 250, 300, 400 people? I understand that. I was a wrestler. I get it.
Well, I haven't been here a few months. How is the draw?
It's
lately?
the same as it was. I mean, we're
Why-
rebuilding.
why do-
That's the biggest thing that pisses me off is like, I feel like I'm in a constant rebuilding. I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every time you take a step forward, you take 2 back.
Do you think that's the reason why maybe you're not drawing? Because you can't, because the guys that you're building aren't staying? You think that's the biggest factor?
Oh yeah, it definitely hurts. I mean, you know, you invest in somebody and then, you know what I mean, and then next thing you know, 6 months later, they're like, I'm going. Or if you get guys that say, okay, well, I'm good for the whole year. Confirm all dates. And then turn around a month later and say, I'm going to leave after the next 3 shows.
How do you break that cycle?
That's a very good question. Consistency, I think. I think you have to be consistent. I think you have to show that you care. Show the wrestlers, the fans, everybody that comes through that door, whether they're part of the backstage or what the fans see or whatever. You have to show them that you care about your product, care about what you're doing, take an interest in what they're doing, give them something to believe in. You know, and I mean, we're trying to do that. I think we have a good group of guys now. I'm not saying that we didn't have a good group of guys before, but they're not here. I can't be concerned with guys that's not here at this point. I got to be concerned with what is here and what we got to work with, and it's the next man up.
Fight Society is a little bit of a different concept. What do you think the pros and the cons of what you're doing now is?
You said one of the pros right there. It's a different concept. We're in a bad area. I don't want to say a bad area. You know what I mean? We don't have any problems here during shows or anything like that, but I mean, the surrounding area has a stigma to it. You know, so we're in a building that's an old school building. It's probably 100 years old. And anybody that knows the history of PWX or Fight Society knows that the buildings are not the best buildings around. So Fight Society was basically an embracing of it, as opposed to trying to say, oh, just ignore it, you know what I mean, put on blinders and say, no, there's nothing wrong here, you know.
I mean, I've heard you say that before about the building itself. I've heard other people say that before, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but when I'm inside the venue, where the ring actually is, like, to me it's a cool venue. You have a nice stage, the ring is almost brand new, you know, at least now. They weren't before, but the bathrooms are clean now. Like, you know, I don't know. If you look at it from the outside, it looks a little sketchy. Right. But once you're actually inside the venue, like, it feels like a very cool, almost old school ECW type of a feel to me. Anyway, maybe other people disagree, but for me, that's what I feel when I'm inside the venue. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to step on your toes. This is your interview, but for me, like, I wouldn't think twice about the actual venue, because the venue to me is very cool. You just have to convince people to get past the outside and into the inside.
That's the exact problem. Is the inside, I think, is cool. I totally agree with you. You know, I think it does have that good feel. The outside, the stigma of the town that we're in, you know, it doesn't help. And I'm not going to make any excuses. You know, can we do more? Absolutely. Can we promote more? Absolutely. You know, and I'm just as guilty of that as anybody else. The thing is, I mean, it does make it a little bit of a problem. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, okay, well, when people get here, like what you just said, okay, the outside of the building is a little bit sketchy. You know, okay, well, that's what we're going to embrace. We're going to embrace the fact that we're more of an underground kind of thing. Because, I mean, you walk in here, you're actually almost, you know, it's the downstairs of a school. It's kind of an underground kind of, you know, fighting feel. You know, we're not necessarily, I don't want to say we went hardcore at all. I mean, we'll use weapons. You know, there must be a winner. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the nicer draws, you know, drawing points for us is the fact that we guarantee a winner every single, you know, every single fight, every single event has to be a winner. Too many times, and quite honestly, I can tell you right now, as a booker, I've done this way too much myself. You have too many disqualifications or schmoz finishes and stuff like that, where people are like, you know, I mean, you can lose fans off of that, where if you see it too much. So, you know, that's our thing. It's like, well, let's go ahead and guarantee.
Are there disqualifications?
There are not disqualifications.
Countouts?
There is actually a 20 count, which makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. And I fully understand that. There's a reason for that will be coming actually really, really soon.
So let me ask this then. The question I had, and it was brought up to me, and I remember before you guys had something here where there were no rules. What was it called before?
Oh, Jesus.
Doesn't matter. It's the
Mayhem
same.
rules.
Mayhem rules. Okay. So, and I do remember then as well. The concern, I guess, is that when there's no rules, how do heels get good heat?